Hi, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be painting these very fun and free with a lot of water and flow peacock feathers. Let's get started. Begin with making a teardrop shape using just water. And you want the middle of that teardrop shape to be open and the paper still dry. Then charge the bottom with your copper color. I'm using transparent red oxide. You can help it along to reach the top or add more pigment, whichever you feel more comfortable with. Go ahead and use a smaller brush and pull out a few of the feathery marks. While the paint is wet, it will be easy to pull out. And use a turquoise color. I'm using Phthalo turquoise. And we're going to paint another circle on the inside of it. And it's kind of an upside down heart shape. And don't worry if your colors intermingle, if they kiss each other. That's perfectly fine. All this blending is great. Then next choose a dark blue and go and make another ring, leaving just the center open. We're creating the eye of that peacock feather. And here choose your brightest blue. I happen to have a phthalo blue. And let those two blues blend in together. I'm going to do the same little technique where I pull out a few of the strokes. Okay, for the next part, I want to identify that vein line, the main feather vein. And I'm just going on the bottom and the top just to give my feather some direction. For this next part, I'm using a very light green and I'm just going around the edges. I'm letting it blend with that copper color, although it's primarily dry at this point. And I'm just creating the shape of the feather. At this point, we're not really trying to draw each individual feather. We're just getting the overall shape, and then we can pull out a few to imply that that's the texture all over. So you can shift to a smaller brush. You can introduce some other colors within. Really, no two feather is alike, so it's whatever you want to make it. And just relax and pull that paint out. It's a very fun stroke to make, and it's great practice. Add enough paint so that you don't get a lot of those dry brush marks. So here I'm just adding a darker greenish color just for some variation. I like the way they blend while it's wet. By adding a little of the brown up here, it's going to emphasize that ring pattern that the feathers have. And these strokes really are acting as our shadow color. So we want a good variety of values as we paint. I was feeling like I was losing a little bit of my turquoise in there as the paint was drying, so I'm just adding a little stronger color in here. You may not need to do that if you're painting along. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going into that eye area and I'm really strengthening it with heavy pigment of my darkest blue. And you can choose to do the same for the brighter blue that's in the center if that got a little faded as well. You really just have to look at your own feather and ask yourself, what does it need? Do I have enough shift in value? And here I just wanted a little more of that paint to pull. So I just went in with a really wet mixture and now I'm using it to pull it out. Now that you've got the hang of it, let's do another. So again, start with that center teardrop shape and leave the middle of the shape open. And you can just use clean water. I have a little bit of a tint here just to help you see what I'm working on. So then charge it with your coppery color. And then help the paint around if it needs it. And I always use this opportunity to pull the paint out while it's wet. So I'm just adding a few of those feathery shapes. And then going in with the darker, I can identify the vein line. And just taking that vein down so I know the direction of this feather. Okay, so let's go back to the center and add a bit of our turquoise. Remember, we have that upside down heart shape. And then go in with your darkest blue, leaving a little bit of the center for your bright blue. And allow those two blues to blend in together. And just enjoy this process. Don't worry about bleeding. Don't worry if it looks different than the other feather. That's the whole idea, is just to be flowy and free and get in that awesome watercolor zone. So now we'll add the shape of this feather using the green, just a light tint. I was already sensing my first ones were drying very light, so I went in a little heavier, and at the end I can go back in and glaze over the other ones. And feel free to vary all the colors you're using. I added a little more of the green gold to my turquoise so that I have kind of a varied background, because I just love that watercolor affords you that opportunity. So I'm just pulling a few of those strokes through. I know you can't see because my hand gets in the way. Sorry for that. But as it moves away, you can see all I did was just pulled out a few of those linear strokes. So now just giving the overall shape of the feather with the light tint. And then you can flick out some of those longer, stringy parts of the feather. And just remember to follow the contour of the feather. It goes around that center eye and then up in the middle to follow that teardrop shape. And here I just deepened the color so that I would get that variation. And you can see all three of these feathers are slightly different, but they work as a set. And that's how it would be in nature. I'll include a reference photo in the description, but I'm really not using it beyond, I used it to understand what does a peacock feather look like and what color should I choose. But beyond that, I'm not trying to match the layout in any way because I don't want to be hindered by that. So just adding some of those deeper accents that are kind of the shadow coming off of the vein line, and at the top to show that ring pattern. Then going in with that dark, dark blue just to kind of reinforce that center area, really sharpen it up. I'm going back to the first one I did because I could see it needed it as well. And then the same with that bright blue. And I'm just lifting a little bit because I got a little carried away here with the dark, and so that left room for the bright. As I'm doing my final review, I feel like the feathers were a little drab, so I'm just going in with a punchier green and I'm just glazing over. So I'm just adding a very light tint of the green on top to give it a little more pizzazz. And while it's wet, you can use that opportunity to kind of blend in some other colors. These things may or may not be necessary on your particular feathers. You just have to assess as you go. You can choose to do this step or not. If I don't know if you like the look of it. Again, I felt like they needed a little more punch. If you picked a punchier color at the beginning, this may not be necessary, but I don't mind the variation in it. I think it's just all part of fun is layering watercolor. And as a final step, I'm just going in and adding a little more of that brown color throughout just to kind of hold everything together. Here you can see a few more that I did. I hope that you painted along and that you enjoyed this and you felt the flow and the freedom that you get from painting watercolor. Thanks for joining me today. Have a great day.